Who won the NHL Trade Deadline? Easy. VGK. I'll tell you one thing. The defending champs aren't resting on any laurels. We're breaking down the moves the Golden Knights made as they ramp up for another playoff run. Sin City Beat starts right now. Let's go.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
What's up, guys? Welcome, and thanks for joining us on Sin City Beat. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Thanks for hanging out with us. So Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the sports reporters and talented storytellers leading the charge. Now, on today's show, we're breaking down all the VGK moves from the NHL Trade Deadline. Joining the action today, we got Case Kiefer, assistant sports editor of the Las Vegas Sun, our very own sports anchor and reporter Vince Sapienza with Fox 5 Las Vegas, and producer of the VGK Insider Show, Chris Chapman with Fox Sports Las Vegas. So we got ourselves a panel today. I mean, no one would be traded from this panel we got here, guys. Great to have you with us. So let's dive right into this trade deadline stuff. So Vegas Golden Knights GM Kelly McCrimmon went to work, right? I mean, acquiring three big pieces in three separate moves. We got defensive men Noah Hannafin from Calgary. We got two wingers in Anthony Mantha and Tomas Hertl, and from Washington and San Jose, respectively. So Vince, Bleacher Report graded VGK's trade deadline with an A for their work at the trade deadline. And get this, even ESPN gave an A++. I didn't even know that was possible. So Vince, is this A++ warranted?
Well, the A++ wasn't around apparently when I was in grade school, because I never got one of those. But I will tell you this. Looking at the Golden Knights trade deadline, what they were able to acquire, I would have given them an A+ without Tomas Hertl, guys. I mean, when you look at the needs and the Golden Knights, what they have and what they needed to kind of really bulk up, they brought their entire team back from the Stanley Cup run minus Riley Smith. They load up with Noah Hannafin, and then they get that depth forward that we knew that they were going after in Anthony Mantha. But to pull off Tomas Hertl against with a rival, and to do it in a year where he's only in year 2 of an 8-year contract, who else is looking for Tomas Hertl in the midst of this contract? Kelly McCrimmon deserves all the A+ he can get for going out, dealing with a rival, getting their best player, and still somehow not giving up a single active player on their current roster.
Yeah, I wish I could create some conflict and disagree vehemently with Vince here, but I just really don't feel like it, from a Vegas perspective, there's much negative you can say. They pulled the proverbial hat out of the, rabbit out of the hat again, or maybe flamingo off the ice to make it more Vegas-y. But you know, I know there's a lot of controversy. We're going to get into that about the way Vegas has acquired these players over the years, but you got to step back and have just some appreciation. I feel like if you're a fan, for how hard they go for it every year and how they're always all in. I think this was another example of that.
Yeah. You kind of look at the way that they got Hertl, because they got San Jose to keep salary on top of it for 6 years. So you now have more flexibility next year if you want to go out and re-sign Jonathan Marchessault. So I imagine Noah Hannafin's going to be a guy that they're going to look to re-sign as well in the offseason. Who knows, maybe Anthony Mantha. They got a couple of other guys, William Carrier, on an expiring contract. But I heard Tomas Hertl, and he said he didn't even know he was on the block to be traded.
So, and just the fact that we're doing this with a team with such pent-up rivalry, the nature of the dynamics between the San Jose Sharks and the Vegas Golden Knights, to fleece a team like that, that's your rival, how impressive is that?
Well, and let's not forget, obviously this rivalry maybe is not what it was 3-4 years ago. The San Jose Sharks are obviously in a rebuilding mode. The Golden Knights are on a different level entirely. But don't forget, Tomas Hertl had to waive his no movement clause to come here. So when you have a rival, a guy that you've gone to war with time and time again, and he's like, yeah, I'll sign up and I'll go there. I know what they're about. That says a lot about the Golden Knights organization. That says a lot about the culture that they've created. And this win now mentality. Guys, I'm sure you guys have talked about it. You've gotten message on social media like I have. Every fan wants their team to do what the Golden Knights are doing. Activate video game mode, go for everybody they can, and give nothing up. It's absolutely incredible when you look at the give back, especially when we talk about Tomas Hertl, right?
Yeah.
They gave up a first-round pick in 2025. They got back 2 third-round picks, one in 2025, one in 2027. When you look at the difference between the picks that it's going to be in terms of the number, how late Vegas's first-round pick is going to be and how early San Jose's pick is going to be in the third round, you're really talking about 35 spots,
now
40 spots.
But the cost of David Edstrom is how big of a thing is that? Should we be worried about that?
I think with the timeline, I would just say no. I mean, I do think the Golden Knights got the better end of this trade. I think with the grades, we've seen that reflected. But, you got to look at it as these two teams are on different timelines. Obviously, they have different priorities. So, I think it went okay. I do go back to how amazing it is. I know the rivalry is not what it once was, but how many sports do we hear, well, we're not going to trade this guy within the division? You hear that in everything. And to get this done with the Sharks, I think adds a little extra to it. And I'm not all that concerned like Vince with what they gave up.
Yeah, and Vince, you and I were in San Jose for that Game 7 a couple years ago, and I mean, talk about a gut punch, and Tomas Hertl was kind of a key to that team that beat the Golden Knights. I mean, I've said he's a guy that you've loved to hate because you had to respect him because he was such a really good player for San Jose and a very likable personality as well. I think after he scored the winning goal in Game 6 of that series, he made the comment, well, we're not coming back here and we're going to win. And sure enough, he was right. They did win that series. But as far as Edstrom, I mean, you look at what this team has given up in the past, Peyton Krebs in the Jack Eichel deal. I know they gave up Nick Suzuki, who's turned into an all-star, but a lot of what they've traded away hasn't quite materialized into what I would be concerned about. I mean, maybe Edstrom will turn out to be a really good player. I don't know. But I'm always willing to trade prospects if I'm getting a bona fide player in return, and that's what Vegas got here.
Well, I love it, and guess what? I'm giving this panel right now an A++++. So 3 pluses.
Let's go.
Guys, coming up next, okay? Salary cap manipulation, fair, unfair? We tackle the topic being talked about all around the league. Stay with us.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Welcome back to Sin City Beats. Sure, if you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, you're loving this recent trade deadline. But if you're an opposing GM or a team, maybe not so much. People on social media are hating on Vegas' case. The negativity that is stemming from all this hate is something referred to as salary cap manipulation. Can you please define what this term is and why haters continue to keep hating?
Yeah, I mean, Vegas has kind of been public enemy number one ever since they came into the league, and I think a large part of that was the early success they had. But now, lately, it has been the salary cap circumvention, as you put it. And basically, there's no salary cap in the playoffs, to make it very simple. So all these guys they have, if they have guys on long-term injured reserve, they can come back, they can go above the regular season cap in the playoffs, have as much of an all-star team as they want. Obviously, there's restrictions during the year that they can't do that. So this will be, it looks like the second year where that's the case. But to me, and I'm interested to see what Vince and Chris say about that, as they're much more on the all day-to-day. But this is just much ado about nothing. The Golden Knights aren't the first team to do it. They're not the last. They're not even going to be the only team this playoffs that's over the cap. So I think that the Golden Knights are just the villains of the NHL for whatever reason, and this is just something that people have latched on to further that role.
Okay, so salary cap circumvention or salary cap manipulation, however you guys want to say it. Vince, I know you're worked up about this.
I'm worked up about it because I get messages constantly from opposing fans that are just spewing venom at the Golden Knights and what they're doing. Let's get something clear. The haters that are out there, they don't like winners, right? We saw this with the New England Patriots before they won their first Super Bowl. They were the darling. Everyone wanted the New England Patriots to take down the Rams in that Super Bowl. They did. They put a dynasty together. Everybody hates the Patriots. Same with the Chiefs. It doesn't matter the sport. It doesn't matter what happened. Everybody talked about when the Golden Knights in year one, they weren't going to win 20 games. They weren't going to win anything. They go on their run. They continue to have success. They continue to win division titles. All of a sudden, they start loading up, winning games. People aren't so much in love with the young new team. That being said, I said it in the previous blog. Every fan wants their team to do what the Golden Knights are doing. You call it circumvention, which is a word I had to look up during the Lightning's year they won the Stanley Cup with Nikita Kucherov, because that's where you first heard it. But the Golden Knights have used it as a weapon. They have maximized what they are able to do with the salary cap. It's no different in the NFL, as we saw with the new league year this past week. Teams having players restructure contracts right before the league year so they can get cap compliant. One thing the Golden Knights have never been is not cap compliant. They have followed the rules since day one. So the fact that this continues to be a conversation is is a little mind-boggling considering they've always been cap compliant. And this is something that is bargained with the collective bargaining agreement. If the owners wanted to change the way this is operated, they can do it.
So, and you bring up like the New England Patriots. To me, when we talk about unfair, deflating footballs is unfair, right? I mean, that is not within the framework of the rules and regulations. So why do teams, why do media members, why do fans hate on something that is completely within the rules of how teams can operate?
Well, I can speak to this because I am a certified hater. I grew up a New York Mets fan and a New York Jets fan, so I've had to watch the Yankees and the New England Patriots win multiple championships while I'm stuck with 1986 and the New York Mets,
right,
which most people watching probably don't even remember. So to me, the elephant in the room here is the idea that the Golden Knights would not want to have Mark Stone on the ice. Like, it's stupid to think that the Golden Knights would say, yeah, you know what, we're going to go through the rest of the regular season without our captain, without the heart and soul of our team. I mean, the guy has a ruptured spleen. We're not talking like he's got turf toe. I mean, we're talking a ruptured spleen. It's a very serious injury. And the guy had 2 back surgeries last year. So that's also not a walk in the park. So the idea that the Golden Knights would purposely put their best player and the guy who kind of makes their team go on LTIR just so they could acquire more players, it's stupid. And it drives me nuts because now you have national media people questioning it, yet they're not questioning the Colorado Avalanche, who I watched take down the Vancouver Canucks last night. They're over the cap, and they've got Gabe Landeskog waiting on LTIR, and if he comes back for the playoffs, are people going to cry about that? I mean, we're talking a really damn good player for the Colorado Avalanche who would come back. So,
well, and let's explain something real quick, long-term injured reserve, of what that is. That's not just a label you can place on a player anytime you want. You have to file paperwork. You have to go through the league. You need to disclose what the medical issue or whatever the injury is to the league. This all is a paper trail, so it's not like the Golden Knights are just putting Mark Stone on LTR every February, even though that is what has happened. He's been injured. As you said, 2 back surgeries, a lacerated spleen. This is
serious stuff.
You are going through proper channels, and I'm talking with people inside the Golden Knights organization and outside. Nobody else has an issue with this in the league except the fans.
Okay, so this is a fan issue. All right, now, guys, I'm going to try to circumvent us out of this block into the commercial break. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, so next up, there's a good chance Sade wrote Smooth Operator just for this guy. I'm talking about the GM of the Vegas Golden Knights, Kelly Smooth Operator McCrimmon. I mean, this dude just fleeced the San Jose Sharks, even with the built-in rivalry. How does he do it? We discuss after the break. All right, 3 big additions with no major subtractions. Listen, my SAT didn't show off any promising mathematic ability. Sure, I'm not afraid to admit this. I still might use my fingers to calculate tip when I'm out to dinner at a restaurant. I actually do that, even on dates. Moral of the story is I'm bad at math, but I will say this. 3 big-time additions with little or no subtractions sounds like pretty good math to me. So, Chris, just how remarkable of a GM is this Kelly McCrimmon? I mean, Sade wrote Smooth Operator for this guy.
That's a good song, too. Look, Kelly McCrimmon, despite the fact that he has not won the General Manager of the Year in the NHL, he is the best general manager in the NHL. There's zero doubt about that from my perspective. And you just look at every single year. They went out last year at the deadline, and they got Ivan Barbashev, basically gave up nothing to get Ivan Barbashev, who was a massive contributor for them in the playoffs last year. Teddy Bluger, a guy who kind of slid under the radar, really good player. He's now with the Vancouver Canucks, but you got him at the deadline. The ability of Kelly McCrimmon to make the moves that need to be made, and sometimes people could say shrewd. I know people get emotional when certain players get traded away, but you have to look back at the track record and say, all right, what's more important to me, my emotions and my love for a specific player, or winning? And winning comes above all else.
And that's amazing. And he's shrewd and winning. But you would think all other general managers, all organizations and franchises would hold themselves to the same standard. So why is he able to make it work when so many other GMs can't?
It's an interesting mentality, right, that you think would be obvious around the rest of the league, but you go back to the Ivan Barbashev deal. They give up Zach Dean, a prospect that they took late in the first round the previous year. He basically said, we think Zach Dean is going to be Ivan Barbashev when he gets of age. We're trying to win now. Right. Let's go get Ivan Barbashev now. A lot of general managers around the league get so infatuated and so mired by the idea of what their next guy could be. And as much as the Golden Knights pride themselves on the way they draft and who they pick up and what they're able to do, Bill Foley, the message comes from Bill Foley.
Right, trickles down.
It trickles down. And, we hear that a lot in organizations, but we don't see it a lot. It happens with the Golden Knights. He says, we're going to be aggressive. We're going to go to win championships. Right. That aggression is built in with GM Kelly McCrimmon and what he's done. It's the same deal. David Edstrom, he might be a fantastic prospect in 5 years.
Right.
They're trying to win now, and if the cost of that is getting a guy, even if it's a rival, in Tomas Hertl, you go out and you do it because you are trying to give your team right now the best opportunity to win.
And I think a lot of this, too, is just knowing yourself, right? I think so many teams and organizations, they can't figure out where they're at. They're almost in this, middle ground place. They're not sure, are we trying to win now? Are we trying to win for the future? Are we trying to build for the future? So just knowing who you are and what you're striving for probably is a big deal as well.
Yeah, that identity is important. And I also think it's important that we've touched on some of the track record, the history, the guys he's brought in. To me, what he's done in the past makes to be able to keep doing it all the more impressive. Not to give the haters more shine, we already did last block, but when all this happened and they were made shrewd moves, as someone said, and they were kind of played hardball with some of these guys, what did you hear from the people that didn't like Vegas? Oh, teams aren't going to trade with this guy anymore. He's beat them out of players.
Exactly.
Players aren't going to want to sign there. It has been a total 180 and opposite. Really big name players still want to come to Vegas, and he's still targeting the right guys, working with the right organizations, getting it done.
Like if I'm, Danny Briere, GM in Philly, I don't even want to pick up the phone when I see 702.
And don't forget, GM Kelly McCrimmon was one of the first guys to really start the roller coaster of brokering third-party deals to retain money. We saw with the Robin Leonard deal. I know that name is a bit of a hot topic too. That's a different episode. But he was one of the first ones to kind of get that into the mainstream. It's happened a lot. And how about George McPhee stepping aside so that GM Kelly McCrimmon could have the general manager spot all those years ago? Wow. That's a big move, too.
See, this is why we have Vince Sapienza on this panel. Guys, we got to go to break. I still want to see Chris sing some Sade. We're going to try to get him to do that maybe a little later. But after the break, we're asking a big-time question. Sure, VGK won the trade deadline, but how do all these moves set them up for another cup run? The panel answers that next. Plus, Chris might sing some Sade. We'll see. I'm going to try to get him to do it. Well, they say the only thing harder than winning a championship is, of course, defending one, and that's what's facing VGK right now, currently sitting at 35-23-7. This is a team that brought back everyone from the Stanley Cup squad besides Riley Smith, as Vince said earlier. Now, Vince, how are you feeling about this team in terms of a repeat after all these moves from the trade deadline?
Well, this is going to sound weird because we just gave all the praises to Kelly McCrimmon and what they did to this roster, but the players got to play, right? So at the end of the day, the Golden Knights have had some bumps in the road, especially in the last few months, and it's interesting to see how this team will come together down the stretch because last couple games, they've looked like the Golden Knights of old, right? Finding ways to win. May not have always been the prettiest, may not have always been the complete effort, but they found a way to win. I'm curious to see when this team gets fully healthy, when Noah Hannafin is fully assimilated, Anthony Mantha finally kind of starts going. When we see Tomas Hertl at the end of the regular season, where he exactly fits in, it's going to be interesting because guys are going to have to move around. Chandler Stevenson's probably going to have to move to the wing. Is Alec Martinez or Zach Whitecloud the odd man out when it comes time?
Well, it's not going to be Hannafin.
Well, it's not going to be Hannafin, especially with them working on a new contract as we speak. So it's going to be interesting to see how that synergy goes because this team was very close last year. And there's been a lot of moving parts and a lot of guys coming in and out because of injury. So it'll be interesting to see how this team looks in the final week of the regular season going into the postseason.
As you guys have, covered this team and, teams in the past, when a team wins a championship and they go through that, the highs of that, right? But then when you come back to the building the next season and you got to do it again, right? What is that? What kind of mental stuff kind of comes into the frame, into the picture when you have that,
Well, there's certainly some mental stuff, but I think even bigger is the physical toll it takes, especially in hockey. You look at the injuries that teams that have won the championship have faced the next season, and I know Golden Knights fans are used to them dealing with a lot of injuries, but it's striking them again here, putting all those extra miles on their legs. That's part of the swoon we've had the last couple months. I think they've just had so many guys out. So I think there's a mental toll, there's a physical toll. Bottom line, it's really hard to win one Stanley Cup, let alone two. There's a lot of luck involved. Crazy things can happen in hockey, but their chances have gone up. There's no doubt that the percentage that they could went up with the moves they made at the trade deadline, and that's all you can ultimately do.
Chris, I mean, where are you at with this? After all these moves, I'm trying to picture myself as you. I have a pocket square, I have a beautiful hat. I get these push notifications that all these trades go down. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Are you thinking like this is what this team needs to go on another cup run? What was your initial reaction, and where are you sitting right now with this team?
Well, they go all in every year, and I think this year being no different than any other year, maybe more so this year than other years. But what I like the most is that they've also set themselves up not just to repeat, but to potentially build a dynasty. Because when you bring Noah Hannafin in, who's one of the best defensemen, he was the best defenseman in Calgary, first pairing guy. You bring in Tomas Hertl, who's a potential all-star. You're telling the rest of the league, we're not satisfied with just repeating. We want to build a dynasty. We want to win here in the desert. And, you know, we don't care if it hurts some feelings around the league. This is the way we're going to do things, and I love it.
I just want to, let's just take a pause for a second. The enunciation of Tomas. Let me hear it, because the way your lips are moving when you're saying this is just a beautiful thing.
Tomas?
Say it slowly.
Tomas. I have
It's Tomas. So we're not saying Tomas, and we're not saying Tomas or Thomas. We're saying Tomas.
Well, I grew up with some Polish relatives, and I'm just assuming that Tomas is the same as how they would say it.
You like how he's saying it?
I love the way he's saying it. It's fantastic.
It's the way it comes off your lips and your tongue. It's beautiful.
Shout out to my Polish relatives.
So there you go. We're going to all grab some pierogies right now. Guys, I want to thank my great panel. We got Case Kiefer, of course, always lovely to have him. Chris Chapman, Magnum702 on Twitter, got to throw that in. And Vince Sapienza, I'm Mike Davis. We're going to see you next time on Sin City Beat. In unison, let's say Tomas.
That was not in unison whatsoever.
Okay, one more time.
Tomas.
I don't have the Polish down. I don't know. I'm out.